You joined us for Rain of Blood, and together we made it rain bigger and better than we could have ever imagined. So now, join us for a second blazing inferno of knowledge and exploration. You're listening to Rain of Fire, the scorching sequel event to Rain of Blood, where we're going to delve into the world of fireplay education and safety as we prepare for the upcoming Rain of Fire event. Join your host, Miss Kitten, Radically Dark, and Ember Solaris as we ignite your curiosity and stoke the flames of passion with discussions, interviews, and authentic insights from around the globe. Together, we're three flames united in one mission to make quality kink education more accessible and open pathways to conversation and connection about edgeplay topics around the world. But before we dive into these sizzling topics, a content warning. Rain of Fire discusses mature themes, explicit content, and practices related to BDSM and fireplay. So listener discretion is advised, and this is an adult-only podcast. Other topics may include mental health, trauma, consent, and more. So please be sure you're in a good spot to engage in these topics before continuing to listen. So, grab your fire gear, stoke the flames of curiosity, and let's embark on this crackling journey together. Welcome to Rain of Fire.
Hey, amazing firebugs, and welcome back to the Rain of Fire podcast. I have an incredibly special guest on the other side of the table tonight for a change. One of my co-administrators and co-organizers of Rain of Fire, Ember Solaris, a voice you all know very well. And I'm really excited to welcome this human into my virtual dungeon tonight. Welcome, Ember, and thank you so much for joining me on the podcast.
Yay, you've heard from me on occasions, but it's always great to be on the other side, at least to get to chat with you a little bit more.
So like the whole idea for Rain of Fire came from Ember. Just I'm making it all Ember's responsibility here, but she was the big catalyst in starting this blaze, and the idea to talk about fire and talk about fire as a kink and explore it more definitely was your baby. You birthed this one. And we've all caught on and had an absolutely amazing time. But fire wasn't always amazing for you. And I want to talk a little bit about that tonight and go into a little bit about where you came from with fire and how you experienced fire before you found it in kink.
For sure. So I wanted to add a quick extra content warning that I am going to be talking about fire trauma, loss of loved ones, and various not so nice stuff. So if you're in a rough spot, per usual, you might want to step away from this one. So, with that being said, my earliest memories of fire was always of fear. I remember massive bonfires when I was little, fear of things burning down, fear of houses catching fire. I remember my house getting hit by lightning when I was little, and just this fear of this element that seems so wild and crazy. And I remember when I got older that I actually ended up having a home that was lost to a fire. And actually, we lost a lot to that, and it was quite a hardship to my family at the time. And it was something that I grieved for quite a while, uh, in an odd way. It's an odd grief. It's a very, very odd grief. While we did end up losing some pets, and to that, unfortunately, it's something that you feel like you shouldn't grieve too much, and yet it affected us for a lot longer in ways that we didn't think it would. And fast forward a few years later, we actually ended up losing some family members, including, unfortunately, some children. to a house fire as well. And that absolutely devastated us, both me and my other family members as well. So, fire was something that absolutely plagued my nightmares. And to this day, it is literally something that terrifies me. Uh, I have been through extensive therapy for my fear of fire. I have fire alarms in every room. I have at least 3 fire extinguishers in the goddamn house. Like, it is, I laugh because it's humorous, because I know it's an irrational fear. And yet I do have these symptoms stemming from the fire based trauma. But wait, isn't your name fucking Ember? And don't you identify as a dragon or draconian in nature? And don't you play with fire? And don't you just not just play with fire? Don't you do a lot of like big fire shit? Well, yes. And so for me, it kind of all changed with kink and with the fire aspects of kink, if that makes sense.
It makes a lot of sense, and very brave to approach something that had so much you'd had suffered so much loss from, and to be so inviting about bringing it back into your world. What was that like, and how did that journey begin?
Well, it really started with fire cupping. I love blood cupping. I absolutely adore blood cupping. I love the way that it makes people get grossed out, um, to be honest. And so, one of the best ways to do that was to do fire cupping. And suddenly, the moment that I had the fire in my hands, and then when I was using wax with candles, suddenly the fire became my friend. And I realized that while I couldn't quite control it, it was in my hands and it wasn't hurting me. We could coexist together to some degree. And while, maybe it wasn't a situation where it was a guarantee, it didn't have malintent. I guess you could say that I learned that the fire wasn't evil or wasn't intending to harm me. I know it seems weird because I know that the fire isn't some sentient thing out to get us. But after all of that pain and all of that loss, there is some level that almost feels that way, like the fire is something like that. I just learned that it exists, and it's neutral, and I lost my judgment toward it, but only when it's in my hands. When it's in other people's hands, it's a whole different ass story. um, I have control issues, as I've mentioned a myriad of times. But when it's in my hands, we have an understanding. My understanding is that this force, this chemical force, this reaction, I can respect it, I can understand it, and it has its place. And I don't have to like it. I don't have to not like it. I don't have to judge it. I can have boundaries surrounding it, and I can respect its boundaries. And being able to have boundaries around it was something very free for me.
Love that. Thank you for sharing so authentically. It's really lovely to understand your journey a little bit more. Fire for me is can be very overwhelming. When I was able to make it into smaller amounts and be able to control is the wrong word in the sentence, but basically when I was able to establish a little bit more of my own boundaries around it, and the fire was in a controlled amount, I found it much easier to be able to not be overwhelmed in the situation. So I relate to that side of it. Living on a farm, seeing grasslands go up every winter, and fearing for the lives of my animals and my livestock. So I relate quite deeply to the sense of loss, and just having to look at that field the next day and know that financially there is a loss, and emotionally there is a loss, and then there is a loss because it impacts everything down the line, but having to carry on with life because it's part of the cycle of life almost, and it's something that you have to just deal with. Yeah, so a huge respect for you picking up that first blood cup. I'm a little bit sure that blood had something to do with why you picked up
Oh yeah.
fire. So
Oh yeah, totally. But yeah, no, barn fires, every horse owner's worst nightmare in the whole damn world.
yeah, so I think we can all relate on that. Thankfully, we've never suffered a huge loss from it. So I really um know that that must have been incredibly traumatic. So just watching grass burn is it's traumatic enough, and not sleeping at night because somebody might walk through your field and toss a cigarette down, and yeah, so there is an absolute fear there. But finding a way to make it into small, measurable amounts where the fire wasn't overwhelming in the situation has also been liberating to me. So I relate a lot to that. You don't play with it in measurable amounts anymore, though. So what to do with it? Your amounts still scare me hugely, and the whirring noises of your floggers scare me hugely. So it's obviously something you've come to enjoy on some level, and be able to offer an experience to somebody else. What is it like being able to translate it, knowing that it is this primal, huge force that had control over you at one stage, and share the experience with your bottom?
So primarily, I only really do a lot of my fire flogging with my partner, Soren. I don't do it fairly often. Mostly, I do a lot of just regular flogging, because my personal dungeon's not exactly set up for a lot of the fire flogging side of things. The I only have 8 feet tall ceilings, so indoor not super great for that. Not gonna happen. And I have a very visible backyard, so unfortunately, so I only really get to do it when I'm in other spaces that are suitable for it. But, or at least otherwise, I can do it without a bottom. So I get to practice in general without anyone, which I also enjoy. It's meditative. I think there's a part of me that it's very much like dealing with horses almost. It's this massive thing that could potentially cause harm, but I know the boundaries with it. I instinctually understand the boundaries, and I know that it's not going to harm me because I know that line. And it knows that line. I mean, not sentiently, of course, but I have these precautions in place. I know what to do in the case that something out of the ordinary occurs. I accept the risk that something out of the ordinary could occur, and I have a pretty good idea of what is going to occur and a good respect for it. So my fire floggers, fire spinning, no longer scares me. It is more meditative, and I feel very confident in my control over the spin. And that comes from probably tens of thousands of hours of flogging practice with just regular floggers, and then, of course, on top of that, with my fire floggers. But it's attunement, really. There's nothing better for me with my fire floggers. It brings a sense of presence and immediate awareness to the moment like nothing else. I have the most difficult time usually bringing my mind to the present and bringing it to the moment. My mind is always wanting to either gallivant to the past or to the future or to wherever, however, over there. My brain I'm the acid squirrel. That's what it is. All the Adderall in the world cannot make my brain stand still. However, fire offers enough stimulation to help my brain maintain its sense of stillness, its sense of presence in and discipline in that moment, if that makes sense. Like everything kind of slows down and its precision is literally as sharp as my scalpels. And I think that's something I dearly love about it. And I think that's why I tend to really love my fire floggers over, say, my fire wands or any of the other fire toys that I use.
I haven't had much experience with fire floggers, but I've listened to a decent amount of videos and I have experience with fire whip. And there's something about the noise of fire as it travels through the air that is so consuming. And that white noise that happens in my head on a continuous basis that is in the past or in the future stops completely, and I'm able to be completely in the moment. So I relate to that a lot, and I love listening to you talk about it because it's something that puts me back into that space of complete focus and intent. So I'm really enjoying reliving that moment with you. And I've seen you with the fire floggers, and you're damn good. I've seen you with a flogger, and you're damn good. For anybody who hasn't seen Ember with a flogger, if you have an on-demand ticket, you can catch her flogging classes. They are excellent. Definitely recommended. So there's definitely skill there. I just wanted to backtrack a little bit, and I know you as a sharps player pretty well by now. And I also know that you don't do anything without an enormous amount of research and understanding. So this is definitely something that I can imagine that you researched extensively and that you put a lot of time into before you picked it up. So it wasn't something that you did off the bat or something that you did carelessly. And I think that maybe that led a little bit to why you feel like you have a little bit more understanding of it, and a little bit more understanding of the medium.
It was hard, really, really, really hard for me to find education on fire stuff. I had to pull a lot from the fire flow arts community. I mean, I live in the middle of nowhere in Kentucky. My ability to travel is pretty limited by both my family responsibilities and my health. And then also, like, where do we go? I mean, going to like 5, 6 cons a year is not going to provide me with as much information as I would like to have. Like, if I'm talking like if I'm talking about as much information as I want about things, there's no amount of going to other events that's going to provide me with that. So, I mean, that's gonna take years upon years upon years for me to get anywhere near what I want. So it took forever. Really, it took probably 5 years or more for me to gain the resources that I really wanted when it came to fire, to feel comfortable. And I still only really consider myself an intermediate fire player. I feel like there's a lot of room for improvement in my skill set. I feel like I still have a lot of places to grow. And that's really some of the selfish motivation behind ROF was because, like, hey, if I, who am literally a professional research slash info finder by training, am struggling to find information related to this to the degree and the quality that I'm looking for, I damn well know other people are struggling to do so. And I could see that it was easier to find in other communities, but not all of us are privileged to be able to have access to that. I mean, and I don't feel like that information should be limited to certain communities or certain locations based on where we live.
I think that that's a very hot topic at the moment, and I run into it a lot because I come from a community that is on the other side of the world and doesn't have the resources like the mentorship or the cons or the legacy that a lot of other countries have in kink. So something like fire was almost a pipe dream and something you saw occasionally on somebody's FetLife video or a bad picture of somewhere and sort of had to make up the story behind it. And it's been revolutionary being able to have access to a whole bunch of really good professionals who have shared their information. It's been interesting because the information differs from region to region and country to country. So I think from a kink perspective, it's been a difficult kink to approach because everybody has their own fuel, everybody has their own system, everybody has their own, and up until now, I don't think that information has been shared very openly on online platforms. There's a lot of controversy about opening up education on an online platform, which I think comes down to privilege, and I think is only that opinion is only generally shared by the people who have access to the mentorship and to the privileged information. For the rest of us who don't have it, we are just really absorbing all of this like a sponge. And yeah, you've definitely opened up fire for a whole bunch of South Africans, and we haven't burnt down anything yet. And we're loving the journey. So huge gratitude for bringing us fire and being a catalyst in igniting blazes in everybody else's lives, and showing us a little bit of the fire world, and sticking with it. And it has been a lot more of a fight because I think people were tentative about sharing in the beginning, and weren't super keen to come on and open themselves up because it wasn't something that had been done before, and it was definitely something that was considered a mentorship program rather than an online education program. But I think you've broken the back of that, and I think you've put it out there, definitely in my country, for a whole bunch of people that would have never experienced it.
Well, and this is the way that I approach it. Number one, take a look at abstinence only sex ed, which is what we have in the US, usually speaking. Does that ever work? Does abstinence only sex education ever actually keep people from having sex? We damn well know it doesn't. So, are you ever actually keeping people from doing this? No, you're not. You're just keeping them from doing it without information. I promise you, you're not keeping people from setting people on fire by not writing about it, by not putting pictures out there about it, by not putting information out there about it, by trying to gatekeep it to some degree, by not putting classes online. You're not keeping that idea out of people's heads. Fire and lighting ourselves on fire has been something humans have been doing for thousands, if not tens of thousands of years. It was like the beginning of human civilization was humans finding fire. Like literally. This is a root aspect of humanity. You're not going to stop it. You're not going to stop people from sticking things through their skin. You're not going to stop people from having sex. You're not going to stop people from setting themselves or other people on fire. But what you can do is give them a little bit more information. Might it be ideal? No, but something is better than nothing. If you can raise, it's like raising the temperature in a large pool. If you can start raising the temperature by at least a few degrees, eventually it'll get there. But if you start just trying drop by drop to get it where you want it to be, it'll never get there. Mass education and access to things, it's not online education versus in-person education. The people who can do in-person education are always going to do in-person education. Of course, it's not that. That's not the question. That's not even an ask. Of course, it's no education versus online education. It's only the people who have that option who are even questioning it.
And I think what I've learned about fire is you don't know what you don't know.
Exactly.
And as soon as somebody can tell you what you don't know, it opens a whole level of thought process around how you're going to approach it and how you're going to address it. So as soon as you can see, for want of a better word, a gold standard, you are able to have something to strive for, and you start to realize what the goals actually look like. So, you start to understand what goes into it, and you start to comprehend the entirety of the process and what you're dealing with. So, for me to have the gold standard of all of these educators and all this information isn't going to make me a perfect fire player. Practice and my own refined skill will over time. But without having that information, I need to learn all of those basic things through accident. And and when you're dealing with something like sharps or like fire, it's better if you don't have to have the accidents and you have
Right.
the information available.
Right. It's gonna, like, why have to repeat the accidents of the past? There's a thing called the Dunning-Kruger effect, which I know you're well aware of, Miss K. It basically says that the less you know in topic, the more confident you are in that topic, because you don't know what you don't know. The Dunning-Kruger effect is particularly dangerous when it comes to shit like this, because you don't know what you don't know, which makes you particularly risky because you think you know everything about it until you get at least a little bit of knowledge. Even if you get a little bit of knowledge out there and people realize what they don't know, then they start to question shit, and then their confidence level hits rock bottom, and then they're more questioning things. And if
And they
we
do
can
more
get people
research.
over that right, then they do more research, and at least their confidence level has hit rock bottom, and they're less likely to do stupid shit without questioning and doing research. that's another reason for getting information out there, is specifically to get people off of that height of tip top of the Dunning-Kruger effect, so that they won't do stupid shit because they're overly confident.
Yeah, and I think what the online platform's done is it's opened a whole bunch of doors for me and for my community, and it's inspired us, it's given us huge aspirations, but it's also given us a reality check of what is necessary to approach the situation. So we're loving every second of it. We've had the best 3 months with Rain of Fire and with the exploration. And I, as always, love having you on my team and being able to say that you are part of my world, because you provide a huge amount of resources and have educated me enormously. So huge thanks and love for that. And 10 days before Rain of Fire, we're starting to count down for the con. Are you excited?
I'm so excited. I'm excited for folks to be able to have this, experience with fire. And it's always so great to be able to work with you, work with your team, and so much love here from the States.
And so much love to all of you and to my listeners. Thank you for listening. If you don't have your Rain of Fire ticket, I don't know what you're doing with your lives, people. Come on. If you're listening to me and don't have a ticket, you're running out of time. 10 days left before Rain of Fire. We still have some scholarship tickets available. We believe education should be for everybody, and that it should be accessible to all. So if you need help, reach out to us. We won't ask you any questions. If you have your Rain of Fire ticket and you haven't registered on our closed FetLife group or on our Discord platform, please do so, because you're going to need to be on those to get the links to the classes. I hope you're enjoying the on-demand content. We have some new on-demand content, some very exciting on-demand content hitting us on Monday. And we are starting to batten down the hatches and get ready for Rain of Fire starting next weekend. So for me, in a very wet Cape Town, lots of love and kitten kisses.